Our first stop on the square today is in Abuja, where the National Assembly has been electing its leaders, the 10th Assembly, that is. Let's get the very latest from our correspondent, Amadine Uyi, who has been following proceedings there today. Amadine, thank you so much for your time here on the square. But since the last time you spoke with us here in Lagos, what else has changed?
Okay, the representatives have finished their own election for the leadership position of the Speaker of the House of Representatives and his deputy, Tajudeen Abbas from Kaduna State, Northwest Nigeria, clicked the position, picking 353 votes out of 306 from the House. His deputy honors. Now, there were about 4 votes. Walomeka was lost after the election, and the remaining 3 votes was shared by the other 2 contestants.
I see. Just take us back into time. Generally, how has who are the new leaders? How have things shaped up as far as the the leadership is concerned for the Senate?
Okay, for the Senate, I have Godswill Akpabio. For the Senate, President this was those that it had endorsed.
Well, unfortunately, we've had to truncate that call with Amadine Oye because of network issues. It would have been great to know what some of the new entrants are saying on their first day on the job. But let's turn attention inwards here in the studio in Lagos and talk about other events. Perhaps we'll start with the leadership as we know them right now. Joining me now are Olusesan Okunade, who's a public affairs analyst, and Evans Ufeli, who is a legal practitioner. Both of them are joining us here in Lagos. Gentlemen, perhaps we should start the conversation today by picking your thoughts on what we know yet about how things at the National Assembly is shaping up. I'll start with you, Evans.
Yes, the leadership of the National Assembly, that the principal members have just been elected based on the rules of the House. It's been a long battle coming, a battle of acceptance, battle of rejection, lobbying, and party politics. See, at this point, party politics extends to the House. It is after the principal members have been properly elected and the House properly constituted that it is expected that party politics should be extinguished temporarily so that governance will take effect. Now the House is fully constituted. We look forward to an assembly that will not be rubber stamped, even though it is an assembly that is dominated by the ruling party. But this time around, I think we have not just the APC and the PDP, majorly, we also have some new incursions, like the Labour Party and some other parties that have clinched that position. The most important thing is not the selection of the leadership. The most important thing is that the leadership must assume its responsibility and go back to Section 88 and Section 89 of the 1999 Constitution that empowers them to oversight the executive. They should be able to oversight the executive effectively for robust and good governance.
Indeed.
The reason representative government is democratic is because it is expected that all the members of the House are representing an extraction of the entire country. That is why every policy, decisions, and appointment of the executive are approved, even finance, approved by the National Assembly. So we congratulate those who have won, those who lost should try some other time, and let us have a house that will do justice to the economy of Nigeria and move Nigeria forward.
I see. Olusesan, I want us to talk about Godswill Akpabio, Senator Godswill Akpabio, briefly. What are your thoughts about him as Senate President? What are your expectations of him as well?
I want to first and foremost congratulate them. They put up a good fight within the House, like my friend Evans said, and finally, someone has actually won. If you look at the antecedents of Godswin Akpabio, I think it will bring to bear some of the things that will yield dividend more to the citizen. For me, which is personal, I expect good governance that will translate into impacting the citizen more than individuals, politicians, that they work hand in hand together at that their level. The die is cast. They've taken over the leadership. People like us will start monitoring on some of the promises that the party and they themselves has actually given to we the citizen. Situation where some of these things are not met, it's an era where we speak up, where we definitely give our own perspective to make sure that we don't wait till the end of the term before we start battling what is not. But we'll give them benefit of doubt to see that they have the oversight function expected of them to give us good governance and not just rubber stamping like my colleague said, and situation where a common man, we have the impact of good governance as promised by the president, because they are going to work hand in hand with him to make sure that some of those promises they gave as a party is actually followed, and that they should know that 4 years is around the corner.
Indeed,
they should hit the ground running, and another election will come, whether the opportunity will be given to them either as individual or as a party, or we look at other areas to see how we can move the country forward.
Indeed, as you both have said, good luck to the 10th National Assembly. But even as they take on their first day on the job, the executive has already hit the ground running. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has approved a new law seeking to further decentralize electricity generation, transmission and distribution. Now, this means that it further opens up the industry across all 36 states and perhaps could be the beginning of being able to meet the electricity demands of the public. This new legislation replaces the Electric Power Sector Reform Act that was enacted by President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2005. Now, the EPSRA of 2005 established the legal, regulatory, and governance frameworks that form the foundation of the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry. So, gentlemen, let's talk a bit more about this new law. And Evans, speak to us a bit more about this law. What does it entail?
Well, before now, not too long ago, about a month ago, President Buhari, first of all, signed this law. But the one that was signed by President Buhari is to take electricity off the exclusive list and take it down into the concurrent list. That is to say that the state cannot make adequate legislations as regards how power should be generated and distributed within the various states of the country. Now, this second bill, the Power Sector Reform Bill that was signed by the new President Tinubu, is to now go further to say that individuals, companies, organizations, CDAs, okay, as it were, now we have the authority to do so, to generate and distribute power within their communities. Now, this law is not just a call for all. Every state will still come up with proper legal framework. And because what we have is an act, this act will be domesticated by the respective states. And the respective states will draw out the parameters after proper consultation. They will draw out the proper parameters upon which licenses will be given to companies, individuals, community CDAs, and all that, and the modalities under which this will be done to avoid chaos in society. Because I've heard people say that now that there is a law to that effect. Everyone can just jump into power generation and distribution and all that. That is not how it's going to work. The respective state will first of all make this law, and then they will go further to draw the legal framework on the modalities on how this will be done. And we must also take note of the fact that it is a gradual restructuring system. Since we have failed and refused to practice proper federalism, we are going to the exclusive list now to pick the issues one after the other, to plug them one after the other as they most affect us. It is a gradual restructuring system which, will affect the fundamental issues of power as it relates to rejuvenating the Nigerian economy.
Very well.
Power, as we all know, is fundamental principles or issues that aid industrialization, and that is what is required in our country. It's a good one for democracy, but the modalities must be such that we have a workable system.
Very well. We'll talk a bit more about the modalities, but Olusesan, could this be the beginning of meeting the power demands of the public in Nigeria?
Yeah, definitely. From what Evan said, this is like liberalizing the system in such a way that several people can have a plug in. This particular act now give room for states, give room for individuals, company, at least if you can generate up to 1 megawatt hour, then you can do those, distribute that within the confines of the legislation that will be put up by the states. It's part of what we, people like us in the power sector, have been advocating for. Now you have investors, coming down to, the drail in such a way that you can franchise to individuals within a specific area to provide this power supply if they have the wherewithal of generating and transmitting it within their area. This on its own, again, too, we limit the ATC, that's the the technical and commercial losses on the path of the power generation. So it's a good step in the right direction. And when you look at renewable as actually purported by the act, you discover that what is practicable in Germany, we might see it coming up. If where we can have a central way of having those energy generated via the renewable sources of energy pumped back into it. As we speak to you, I can tell you for free that our individual houses, you can't move 3 houses without seeing renewable energy, alternative power supply actually being provided by them. But you ask yourself, where do they store those energy to? It's just being stored to them. But if you have a mechanism where this renewable energy can be pumped back into the central generating house of the power system, then you can now distribute it and you have more supply, outweighing the demand that we have, which will definitely force down the cost of electricity and improve businesses to have more growth and development as a nation.
I guess, that may fall under modalities at the state level, but maybe Evans can tell us for sure. Evans, you talked a lot about modalities. What are you expecting to see? Because the law really, based on what I read, does not state specifically what the modalities should be. So what would you expect at the state level that some states do?
Yeah, what I expect at the state level is that there must be a proper administrative structure that will determine who, how, and when a license is issued to operators. Okay, operators will be screened. Issues of competence and regulations must be properly dealt with. Even the federal government still retain that issue of regulation. Remember, we have the NESI. Okay, that body is still very much relevant in terms of overseeing the way states go about it, and the billing system must also conform to legislation and statute in policy, so that you have a liberalized market. Then you also have a pricing system that will not become so exorbitant that the masses for which this law was meant to assist will not be able to have a reach of that power. In the telecommunications sector, there's a proper administration of that sector as regards billing, as regards modality and all that. Perhaps the electricity companies may have to adopt some of the laws already established, or some of the policies already established in the telecommunications sector. It is quite nothing different. I mean, what you need is a supply and a purchase of value and a concomitant exchange of value in terms of consideration and payment to sustain the process and the business, so that those who consume power will have value for money, and those who produce and distribute will have a return in investment. And when you have that coexistence, it's not only going to move the economy forward, it's going to allow us to now expand the business, coupled with other innovations that are coming up in the country. When we have that steady power supply, we'll, return to a situation where our economy will grow, businesses will expand. There will be employment automatically when businesses are, when there is manufacturing.
Indeed.
Perhaps those companies that affect the country can be able to come back, and then we'll have a proper system where our economy will feel the effects of this legislation.
I see. So for, states where they do not have the state level market regulations already established, how long could this take before they realize the effects of the law, or before the law is put into action, Evans?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
Well, I'm asking how long before the law is put into action, because as you said before, there are things that need to be put in place for, especially for states that already do not have their own market regulations.
Yes, first of all, the first thing that will happen is that the House of Assembly of the respective states, the House of Assembly of the respective will first of all domesticate this federal law, the act, okay? They will domesticate it. And after...
Well, I think we lost the connection to Evans. I'll move on to Olusesan now. Olusesan, let's talk about renewable energy, because it would seem that this new law is very focused on renewable energy. Do the avenues exist in Nigeria, and what would they be?
Yeah, sincerely speaking, because we are migrating to greener environment, you discover that renewable energy is playing a very critical role in what we have now. People are trying as much as possible to minimize pollution around us. And that's why, if you look critically around, one of the focal point of renewable energy seems to be solar. We have a fair weather around us here, and you discover that even as we speak, a lot of people are disconnected from the national grid because of the inconsistency in some of the supply that they get, and they get that guarantee. But the area we are actually encouraging is that how do we get the excess that is being derived from this renewable energy back into the system in such a way that you will inject it into the national grid. And that can be achieved now with what we have under the state legislation. So in a locality, if you have people who ventured into renewable energy and they pumped it in, you can do that at a cost to them, which will encourage other people participating into it. And I can tell you a major focal point that has been a nip in the bud to manage which is the aspect of metering, would definitely be a prevailing thing now, because now you will now sectionalize it to go straight down into an area where people can monitor consumption and avoid that area of energy theft, which has been a major problem to the current
Olusesan, I was thinking for places like Lagos where, the state market level has already been regularized, what can the other states learn from the example of Lagos?
Yeah, a lot to be learned. When Evans was talking, he spoke about legislation and people looking at what to do. Now you are going to have a template of people that have actually been practicing and doing this before now, and now they can do it better. For Lagos State, we have the Lagos State Electricity Management Board, who looks into the electricity issue. They're already looking at, with the mega city that is being projected, how we can ease off the cobwebs. And from one of the meetings I attended, they are looking at areas where we can reduce this connectivity, to see how we can have it underground cable being laid in areas where they know that is affordable for them to do. So other states will definitely look at the template of states that have actually succeeded in having a good electricity legislation and market, and see how they can tap into it. There is no crime when you copy something that is good. It will ease the burden because somebody has actually passed through that stress of the rigorous exercise. All you just need to do is to have a good copy template. By the time you copy and you copy wrongly, have a good copy template and reciprocate the same in your state for the development.
I see Evans is back, and I'd want to go to him now. Evans, you were telling us that this law will now have to be domesticated by the houses of assemblies at the various state levels. So give or take, for those who may be interested in applying to generate electricity for themselves or for their communities, how long could this take?
Yes, not only will they domesticate the laws, they will go further to create the legal framework upon which the system will thrive. Okay, there are templates all over. Of course, they will engage consultants and they will engage the companies that have the technical know-how and the skill on those areas to ensure that the states have the right model for the citizens. The end result of this is that you are able to generate and supply power across Nigeria, and you are able to create and supply same constantly, so that business activities and the social economic lifestyle of the people will take a new turn. And that is the most desired aspiration of the average Nigerian on the street. The states have a bigger work in their hands now. And many of these states will have to create a commission to that effect. They are going to have ministries now to that effect, where you are going to have a commissioner managing power, just like you have a commissioner managing health at the state level, managing at the state level. All those restructuring are going to take place at the state level, and this will be for the purposes of making life better for the citizens.
Indeed. Gentlemen, when we come back, I'll take your final thoughts on the Electricity Act, and then we'll move on to the student loan bill. Stay with us here on The Square. You're still here on Village Square Africa. I am Kamini Amano. Still with us are Evans Ufeli, a legal practitioner, and Olusesan Okunade, who is a public affairs analyst. If you just joined us, you missed our conversation on the new electricity bill. We're just wrapping up on that. And so I come to you now, Evans. I know there's a lot to look out for industry players, but one thing that consumers will be concerned about is pricing. How do we ensure that once individual players come into the fray, pricing does not become a problem for consumers?
Sure, what? Pricing?
Olusesan, that's for you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure as soon as a proper framework is put to place, the major player will come. The state regulatory board will definitely look at it. That's what NEC is currently doing, regulating pricing even for the disco. So for the states, they will definitely put the legislation and the regulation in place in such a way that where they will have understanding of the cost of generating and transmitting so that when it gets to the end user, it will not be at outrageous cost where it will lead to exploitation of the citizen. And also, I'm sure the beauty of it will be controlling the emission that the alternative power supply, like generator, is actually given. And that will in tune will assist in making sure that the level of consumption of the fossil fuel, which is petrol, will drastically reduce if you are able to have this. So when you have more supply, like we learn in economics, the demand and supply, when your supply outweighs your demand, definitely with competition in place, it will force down the pricing of that particular product. And I see that playing out well. The beginning may really be a bit stiffer because they are just entering the market.
Right.
But in the long run, we'll definitely have a fair pricing that will be well accommodated by every citizen.
Very well. Evans, as you noted in your earlier commentary when we began our conversation on the Power Sector Reform Act, you mentioned that there are some existing laws surrounding the power sector already. My concern now that I am raising is the possibility of conflict. What you see from where you sit, the conflict of laws in this case?
Well, you see, when you have an act is signed into law for the entire country. Okay, but because we practice what they call federalism, even though there are a lot of doubts and argument as to that, because the states are autonomous, okay, you need to now domesticate those laws. And when those laws are domesticated, they repeal existing laws on those issues, on the same issue. So once it is repealed, then you now have the law. Because you know that every law that is tied to energy makes room for environmental issues too, okay? And that is why it is encouraged that the means of power supply in a country should be that which is, tied towards this process. Because you are going to have, power generation is clean energy as against using generators, diesel, petrol, to generate power, where you have pollution, environmental degradation, and the likes. If our major source and means of power generation is clean energy, like we have a power supply, as we have a law, a legislation now that is on that, you have a massive scale of generation and distribution, then we will do away with these environmental issues gradually, and this will promote longevity. This will impact on life expectancy in the country. And there are going to be further laws, okay? Many states will make further laws apart from the issue of domesticating the federal legislations.
Right.
Federal legislation already we have. Many states other sub-laws around sustaining the power generation and then projecting it for the absolute development of the respective state. The states will be competitive in this area, and the legal framework will be far-reaching.
Well, we'll look forward to that, especially when you cannot transfer your electricity across states. We'll see how that plays out in the future once the states are able to adopt this new law. But also on the table today is the student loan bill, because we know help is on the way for students in higher learning institutions in Nigeria who could use some financing assistance. Now, President Tinubu signed into law the Student Loan Act of 2023. This law seeks to provide interest-free loans to Nigerians in universities, college, and any institution considered tertiary. The law stipulates that an education bank be set up and charge the same with the disbursement of this loan. Gentlemen, let's talk about this real quick. Olusesan, what do you think about this? Is this the way to go with helping students finance tertiary education?
Thank you, Keminni. It's a good development, if you asked me. But we've had brilliant bills like this set up. Our major area of concern is always implementation. If some of these things are raised up, I will come from the perspective as a finance person, saying that that is just a debit side of the books. What is the credit side? If you give somebody a student loan to run itself to school, what area are you working on in such a way that when he finishes from that tertiary institution, he's able to get back good job to pay back the loan, or you are going to impoverish him the more, even though it's interest-free, but it will be burdened by actually thinking that if he actually get a job 2-3 years later, he's going to be battling that. So as good as that is, the workability is my concern, knowing fully well that before now, some of these bills like this, take for example, the transfer money that we had in the last administration, the pupils policy that we had, how many people actually benefited from that idea? We always have fantastic law and a brilliant one indeed, but when it comes to implementation, it's always a problem. And for us, we always feel that it's because we don't have data. How are you going to measure this? How do you know the people that are in school are not just a certain politician, using it as a way of canvassing and winning people to their side for election purposes?
Well,
And
Olusesan, if you think about it, it says that applications will be done through the student affairs bodies of each institution. It also says that there is a requirement your parents or guardians should be making 500,000 naira or less as as part of their income.
Yeah, Keminni, where do you get that data from to know that the specific parents are making less than 500,000? I'm sure you know that we don't have database in this country. We just formulate it when it's time for this kind of policy to come out. And I'm sure my legal person will affirm that to let you know that if we don't have data to work with, it will be very, very difficult to implement this kind of a thing, not having it. The number of low housing that is meant for people that are earning below 500,000. How many of them are acquiring such a housing policy for them to even benefit from the dividend? So it's not about the bill. For me, it's about the implementation.
There should be much more
process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Evans, I'd like to hear your view from the legal point, if you will.
Yes, if you are going to create social support system for Nigerians, it has to be holistic, because you cannot give loan to students and then still maintain inequalities in society. These students you are giving loan to, they should be able to graduate and work in NNPC. They should be able to graduate and work in CBN. They should be able to graduate and work in these juicy areas where only the elites take their children to get them employed in those and fix them. If you want to retain the system where the elites, the inequalities will be kept, and then by giving loans to these people, and when they finish, they cannot get a job to anywhere to work to repay the loan, you are still going to have chaos in society. Okay, so let's embrace the total package for social support system. Let's have meritocracy. Okay, complete meritocracy. Let's have that. Let's have credit facilities for citizens as they are trying to introduce. Okay, let's.
Once again, we have a broken connection to Evans. I'll come back to you, Olusesan. Olusesan, when you look at the student loan bill, the composition of the board does not include any student body in Nigeria. Does that pose a problem to you?
Come back again, please, Keminni.
Yeah, I'm saying when you look at the composition of the board, what's the law stipulates should comprise the board does not include any member of a student body in Nigeria. Does that pose a problem?
I don't think that should be, but at the same time, it's something that should have been actually inculcated into it, knowing fully well that you cannot take decision about the student without having their representative on board. So I consider that as a challenge on its own because they understand themselves, they know themselves better. You will be working on assumption while they will provide the reality on ground as students who understand for the student, so that when they see issues like what we are raising, where the students are actually not having the necessary things after exiting from school or completing their program, they can bring back to the board to actually see how such bill or act can be modified for the benefit of those that are coming behind them. But situation where you are actually taking decision and they are not part of it, I see it as a problem. But let's kickstart and see what the current board will yield that. But I feel they should be part of the board that will actually take decision since they are the one that we're actually working for.
Indeed, Evans, you can finish your point there, but I did want to have you also address, and again, I lost my train of thoughts, but yeah. You go ahead and then I'll ask you the question afterwards.
Yes, what I was saying is that what we should have had is a Social Support System Act. Social Support System Act should capture the 5 issues for which developed countries are rated, and that is to have a credit facility system, to have security, to have health, to have meritocracy, okay, health, I mean public health system. And then the 5th one, which I can't remember right now. Let's have those 5 encapsulated in one law. Okay, because if you want to have one and leave the other, you are still going nowhere. Because why I'm saying this is because if you have, for example, you still don't have meritocracy, the children of the elite are still the ones who will take up jobs in juicy places and big ministries and all that. And then these ones that are taking loan from the federal government to pay through their school fees and all that, and they're out, they are stranded, you are still going nowhere with that. So it will be difficult for those loans to be repaid.
Indeed.
So what I'm saying is, if we're going to have just capacity, let's have it holistic. Let's create the system so that everything should be on merit and everybody should be equal before the law, so that you can drive a proper system.
Absolutely.
In that regard.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I'm afraid that we cannot go any further on the student loan law now, but we'll find another time to discuss this further once the Education Bank is set up. But thank you so much for your time here on The Square, Evans and Olusesan.
Thank you very much, Keminni, and to all our viewers, thank you for having us.
Absolutely, and remember that if you missed this conversation, you can always catch it again on YouTube. Just search News Central TV, and then also if you want to read more about the student loan bill or any of the other bills that have been signed into law, just go onto our website, newscentral.africa. I am Kamini Amano. Thank you so much for your company. I'll see you here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.